Hello everyone and welcome to the program Midday Discuss on Global Television. I am Samuel Odi. Many thanks for joining us. It's a new week filled with lots of possibilities and excitement. So, we'll try as much as you work, you try to make most of it. So I make you welcome to today's edition of the program where we'll be looking at the judicial system of Nigeria and political dynamics. So, given the fact of what has happened in Rivers State and the judgments that has been passed and the one that has been nullified by the state's high court. But let me bring you up to speed with what just transpired a few moments ago. The Court of the Appeal in Abuja has nullified the judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja delivered by Justice Peter Liufen, which barred the Independent National Electoral Commission for releasing voters' register to the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct of the state's local government polls, which had now been conducted. Recall that Justice I. Igwe of the Rivers State High Court in Port Harcourt had, in a judgment delivered on September the 4th, ordered the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct the Rivers State local government elections in the state using the 2023 voters register. The court also mandated the Nigerian police and Nigerian security and civil defense force to provide necessary protection during the electoral process. The judge held that the defendants are bound by the Section 7, subsection 1 of the Constitution and Section 5A of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission Law Number 2 of 2018 to make provisions and conduct the local government polls within the shortest possible time, especially following the expiration of the tenure of the former elected officials on the 17th of June this same year, 2024. So after that, there was a lot of rift that happened. There was a trajectory of back and forth where the Federal High Court in Abuja here is saying it's not possible, they should hold off. But another issue came about jurisdiction. If the Federal High Court in Abuja here has the jurisdictional power to be able to make this statement in Rivers State. Looking at all of those, but fast forward, the election was conducted and then mostly PDP didn't get to participate in the election and all. So now we just want to look at the angle within the judicial system, because just a few days ago, this judgment was passed and then nullified. So the election was actually rightly conducted. So looking at all of these angles, now we are going to be extracting all of the challenges. What led to what? Does the judicial power system still have its power over decisions like this, or political gurus are also taking over? Those in the politics are also, using their ambition or using their powers or gifts that have been given the sector, the judicial sector, to be able to, have influence over the decisions that the judicial system makes. It's known that the judicial system is actually the beacon of hope for all Nigerians, and if that system it's compromised, then there's a problem for Nigerian constitution and for the common man in Nigeria. So today we are going to be looking at the dynamics between the judicial system and politics in Nigeria. I have a guest who will be joining us virtually who will help us extract all of these major talking points as we take to make meaning of what transpired during and after the elections, the local government polls that happened in Rivers State, as well as affecting other sectors of Nigeria, that is other states, and then the federal at large. But we'll be going on a very quick break. When we return back, we'll be diving deep into the conversation as we tend to extract other angles that talks about accountability and all of that. So you stay back. It's a power-packed program, so you sit back. We'll bring you all of this information as we tend to extract the major talking points. Just stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. Yes, if you're just joining, you haven't missed most part of the program. So we're about to extract the judicial, the dynamics between the judicial system and political system of Nigeria. I have Mr. Jide Ojo, who is a public affairs analyst and anchor, and also an author of numerous books, who is going to help us have this conversation. Good afternoon, Mr. Jide. Thank you so much for joining on today's edition of the program.
Good afternoon, Sam. It's my pleasure.
Yes, many thanks for joining us. So, sir, let's get right into it. I'm very aware that you're sure of what's actually transpiring or has transpired in River State and developing issues coming up. How well can you say the judicial system handled the situation that recently transpired?
Well, what I heard when you were giving background out to this discussion was the events leading up to the uh, recently held local government election in Rivers State, and all that happened before, during, and after the legal tussle that happened between the parties and then the Rivers State Electoral Commission. One thing we need to understand is that it is right and appropriate for those who disagree with certain development to approach court for redress. The PDP and APC
Bit of a little bit of technical or network issues there, but it's being actually resolved as we speak. But we'll get Mr. Jide Ojo soon. So he is actually making mention about the tussle that transpired, and also other issues that arose. So now we're actually going to be looking at some crucial parts that has to do with the judicial independence and accountability, as well as also looking at the executive judicial relations as well, also looking at legislative judicial relations. So these are the major factors that we will be looking at. Like I rightly mentioned before, we went on a break and then came back on to continue the show. The common man relies more on the judicial system, and if its credibility is lost, then there's actually going to be a channel. Okay, Mr. Jide, thank you so much for still being there. You can continue from right where you stopped, sir.
So what I'm saying is that it is okay and appropriate for those who disagree to approach the court for redress. And in the case of River State local government elections, those who felt that River State Electoral Commission should not go ahead to conduct the election, particularly the PDP, approached the court to stop the election from being held, and the River State Electoral Commission also went to court to obtain an interim injunction to allow it to conduct the election. And as it happened now, it is the River State government that have been proven right by the Court of Appeal decision that says that the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction to stop an election by the state. Aside from that, it is wrong for the Federal High Court to stop INEC from issuing voters register to the River State Electoral Commission, as well as even stopping the security agencies from participating or providing security for the election. One thing, Samuel, you need to understand is that judiciary is in layers, and it's multi-layered judicial system we run. So whether your case starts at customary court or Sharia court or High Court or Magistrate Court, you have a right of appeal. And that right of appeal ends at the Supreme Court. And what has come out very clearly is that the High Court, whether State High Court or Federal High Court, need to be very careful. And I think their brother justices at the appellate court need to come out very, very hard on their brothers at the lower court who has given judiciary a bad name. For instance, the federal court ought to know that it has no jurisdiction to entertain that matter of Rivers State Electoral Commission, or entertain matter relating to local government election in Rivers State. But the judge still went ahead, stopped Rivers State from, if the State High Court had not given order to Rivers State Electoral Commission to go ahead and hold that election, that election will still have been held down. That means Rivers people will not have local government administration as we speak, when Section 7 of the Constitution says that no, the system of government and the local government should be democratic. So I think we need to, the Chief Justice of Nigeria needs to come out on the judges at the lower rung of the ladder, who seems to be the one giving judiciary a bad name in Nigeria.
Yes, talking about giving Nigeria the judicial system a bad name in Nigeria. Let's look at politics now. Do politicians now, do you think they have a certain level of influence when it comes to the judicial system?
Of course they do. They do. And this is an issue I've weighed in my column in the Punch newspaper about the creeping influence of the political class in the judiciary. Let me give you very blatant, very potent, very glaring example of the creeping influence of the politician in the judiciary. Last year, during the valedictory service of the Nigerian Senate, one of the senators whose wife happened to be a former president of Court of Appeal, I won't mention his name, said on the floor of Senate that he assisted some of his colleagues in the Senate on their election petition tribunal cases at the tribunal. Now, recall that the president of Court of Appeal is the one that constitutes the election petition tribunal. And the Court of Appeal also stands as the final court on senatorial, House of Reps, and State House of Assembly elections. The only area where the Court of Appeal is not the final court in the case of presidential election, where it is the court of first instance, and then in the case of governorship election, where it stands as the appellate court before the final court, which is the Supreme Court. So if a senator could come on camera, knowing full well that it's being beamed live, could say that he influenced and encroached on the independence and integrity of his wife to help his brother judges, then there is no further evidence you need to tell you that the judiciary is under onslaught from the political class. And usually when you see judgment of the lower court, particularly either election petition tribunal or the Court of Appeal, in political exposed cases, you will realize that some of those judgments stinks to high heavens and could not stand, could not stand the integrity test. Because in many instances, the Supreme Court have given decisions that ordinarily should have been binding on the lower courts in many of the political cases, but the politicians will rather impugn the character of the judiciary. They will rather try to influence the judiciary through backdoors, or including corrupt attempts to corrupt the judiciary. It is in this country that chief, former justice of Supreme Court, Kayode Esho of blessed memory, talked about billionaire judges. How does a judge become a billionaire? What business does he do on the side? You are not supposed to be in private practice. You cannot run a legal firm, even though you are primarily a lawyer before you could be a judge. So it tells you, and in any event, if you observe what is going on now, the political elite have been influencing the appointment of their spouses, their children into the judiciary. So what do you think will happen if along the line their spouses happen to be the one to sit on some cases, if not even cases that involve them as a person, but what of the cases that involve the political party of their husband or their wives? Are you sure there will be no attempts to influence decisions? Even though the fact that your husband or your wife is a judge should not ordinarily affect your sense of reasoning, but some of the decisions, particularly in politically exposed persons cases, as I've said earlier on, really leaves much to be desired. And that is why, there is a rife allegation that corruption um, is affecting the performance of judiciary,
Yes.
given some of the very controversial judgments and injunctions that have been given. Because when you know that this is the way Supreme Court has ruled on a matter, and you as a federal high court judge or state high court judge decides to go against what the Supreme Court has said, then you must be under one influence or the other. It cannot be waved aside that you are standing on law, because law is an ours. And if there are, and that's why in time past, people can say, given the same set of facts, the decision that a judge should reach should be in accordance with precedent that have already been set. But today, we are no longer seeing precedent. Look at the case in Plateau State, where about 16 members of the Plateau House of Assembly lost their seat as a result of controversial decision of the Election Petition Tribunal and the Court of Appeal. And had it been that the situation was what it used to be before the amendment of the Constitution in 2010, which then made governorship election to end at the Supreme Court. Did you know that the governor of Plateau State will have been swept aside? He will have lost his seat, because it was the Supreme Court that was the saving grace for Governor Caleb Mutfwang, when the Supreme Court said, look, issues about political party operations are internal affairs of the party. Whether a PDP conducted congresses in order or not, the court has ruled that this is the way. The Supreme Court has ruled previously on similar case, and because of the miscarriage of justice by the Election Petition Tribunal in Plateau case in 2023, and which was upheld by the Court of Appeal, 16 members and a sizable number of the House of Reps elected members lost their seat, and it is very, very unfortunate.
Yes. looking at those angles now, Mr. Jide, you rightly mentioned that some politicians can, have a bit of an influence around over the judicial system. Now, what do you think the Chief of Justice needs to do, and the Minister of Justice? What do you think? What role do you think they can play in terms of, cushioning the effect, and what level of punishment do you think? Lawyers who practice or who have been found wanting in terms of bending the law to suit someone else, maybe, how well do you think the system needs to, address issues like this, and what form of punishment do you think should there be? Should there be a form of disbarring and or something like that?
When there is a miscarriage of justice and you are not willing to sleep on your right, you can petition the National Judicial Council. Samuel, if you are very conversant with what happened last week, the NJC actually dismissed or asked two judges to be compulsorily retired for certain abuse of office. Even as we speak, the Chief Judge of Osun State is under investigation. So the judiciary has a way of cleaning itself, internal cleansing, and that's why you have a body like the National Judicial Council. So even lawyers have been disciplined by the Legal Practitioners Privileges Council (LPPC), which is a appropriate authority that confers senior advocates of Nigeria on legal practitioners. So there are different bodies that are regulatory of the activities of the judiciary. Even the Chief Justice of the Chief Judge of a state has power over the judges that are serving under him or her. For instance, the Chief Judge of a state can ask a judge to recuse himself and withdraw the case file and reassign it to someone else. So there are different layers of checks and balances in the judiciary. It's just that many of us have not advanced our minds to those checks and balances. And I should say that it's not only the judiciary that has corruption allegations against it. All democratic institutions are heavily influenced by corrupt practices. And corrupt practices may not be embezzlement of money, it could be abuse of office. So we have that in the political parties, we have that in the electoral management bodies, we have that in the even civil society organizations, we have that in the national and state assemblies, we have that even in the security forces. So we should not just be doing scapegoatism that I have the privilege of speaking on a radio station a couple of weeks ago. And I said, look, compared to other arms of government, the judiciary is still a saint. Because when you look at the kind of corruption that exists in the executive and the judicial and the legislative, you would think that the judges are saints. But we cannot gloss over the misdemeanor and the abuse of office that also takes place in the judiciary, which is where we are also calling them out, where some judges have erred, more so deliberately. And so the National Judicial Council, the Nigeria Bar Association, the Legal Practitioners and Privileges Council, all of them are serve as regulatory bodies for different members of the bar and the bench. And we can only urge them to do more, cleanse the audience table, to show the door to any judge or any judicial officer for that matter who try to undermine the integrity of that of the bench and who may have been found wanting in terms of bringing the judiciary to ridicule.
All right, Mr. Jide, we'll be going on a quick break, and then when we return back, we'll continue this conversation where we'll be looking at if politicians or political party ruling either in the federal or in the state has influence in terms of appointing judicial chief judges and all of that. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Yes, many thanks for staying with us. Thank you, Mr. Jide, for still being there. Let's look at this angle now of the conversation. Do you political consideration influence judicial appointments in Nigeria in terms of appointment of Chief Justice of Nigeria and other lower benches in the country?
Well, wherever you have to make a selection, you cannot rule out politics. What I do know for a fact is that appointment of chief judges of the state, I think if it follows the process of the appointment of chief justice of Nigeria, is based on seniority. So, like the current chief justice of Nigeria now, Mrs. Kudirat Kukereko, she was the most senior after the retirement of Honorable Justice Kayode Ariwola, and that was why she was appointed, because there are 21 justices of the Supreme Court. So it's not about your age, it's about how long you have been a judge of a justice of the Supreme Court. I think it also follows similar pattern at the Court of Appeal, that is about seniority, and appointing head of High Court also based on seniority. In the state, I believe it's also about seniority, but you see, when it comes to recommending people for appointment as a judge of High Court or Federal High Court or Court of Appeal, in those areas, I think it has to do with whom you know. That's when you may have to lobby, because many people move from the magistrate court to High Court to Court of Appeal to Supreme Court, and because there may not be, it's not automatic that if you are a magistrate, you will be absorbed in the High Court. Or if you are a member of the state High Court, it's automatic that you can be absorbed at the court of, at the Federal High Court. People can lobby. And in lobbying, you deploy all manner of arsenals, including your political, you can leverage on political uh, friends and actors that you know to pull the strings for your appointment. So, in real sense, you cannot rule out politics or political influence in appointment of certain categories of judicial officers.
Since you can't rule out these factors now, what implication of political interference in the judicial system can affect the common man? Because the judicial system now is a beacon of hope for every common Nigerian. So, since you know who you know and political, can the implication of political interference, affect a form of ruling in the court system, in the judicial system?
Of course, it does, and I've given you instances where it was very blatant, where the court decisions seems, heavily influenced by political considerations. Let me give you an instance. In Rivers State, we have seen so many decisions of the court, both the High Court of Rivers State and the Federal High Court, where decisions were given or judgment were given in a very curious manner. Imagine when a court says it is okay for four people who does not form a quorum to be recognized as members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. How can you, and you want those four people to be the one to accept and consider budget of the state? How would they review, how would they do substantial review of the huge document that's the what's it called, that is the budget appropriation bill of the state? How would they be able to? And that's what played out last year, where St. Fubara submitted a appropriation bill to a four-member, quote and unquote, four members of Assembly of Rivers State, and he submitted it to, like today, afternoon of today. The following day, it was on camera that the Assembly has passed and have sent back the bill, and they signed 800 billion naira. How could you are supposed any bill supposed to pass through 3 stages?
Well, looking at those angles now, still maybe a bit of network issues, but looking at those angles now, like we rightly mentioned, the judicial system is a beacon of hope for every, Nigerian and basically the common man. Now, having to deal with the fact that the system needs to, be compromised in a way, what hope now does this lie for the common Nigerian who sees the judicial system as his beacon of hope? And it was been made to us by SAB, calling on the Chief Justice of Nigeria to cushion the judicial system from getting gifts from all of these politicians, so as it doesn't get to influence judicial practices and judicial actions when it comes to passing of the rule of law. So we have Mr. Jide Ojo back. Thank you, sir. Please, we can hear you. Kindly pick up from where you left up.
So what I'm saying is that if you look at some of the decisions of the Rivers State High Court and the Court of and the Federal High Court, even in cases affecting Rivers State, you see that it's politically motivated. Both the Fubara camp and the Wike camp has been doing what they call forum shopping. Trying to get judgments that will be favorable to their respective camps. And that's why you saw the one that upon which we anchored this discussion earlier on. And it's not only in Rivers State that we've seen it across several states. Because High Court and Federal High Court, High Court of the State and Federal High Court are court of concurrent jurisdiction. So why should and when you say that if this particular case is not within the ambience of Federal High Court, why will a judge not requite, not say so and strike out that case? Rather, what we say, and as lawyers will tell you that they know some judges who are political judges. Once you get your case before them, you can predict how they will rule or what kind of judgment they are going to give. I know, so I mean, I won't mention names, but there are some federal high court judges that are already known within the bar that when you take your political case to this judge, this is how this judge will rule. And that is very unfortunate. But let me come back to whether judiciary is still the last hope of the common man. It is still, because we cannot judge the performance of judiciary only on political cases. There are 1,000,001 civil cases, 1,000,001 criminal cases that are being resolved on daily basis, which are not controversial, in which due process and law is followed to the letter. So we cannot blind ourselves to those landmark judgments. We should also not forget that even in political cases, it's not all the judges that are corrupt. There have been landmark cases that the Supreme Court has come out on the political class. Let me give you two quick instances. In 2019, in Rivers State, the court held that because proper primaries were not held, APC, which was then the ruling party at the center, cannot field candidates for all positions. And that was it. That was how PDP had a landslide and mudslide for all the positions contested in 2019. Then in Zamfara, in the case of Zamfara, because due process was not followed in the conduct of their party primaries, even when elections have been held and certificates of return have been issued, we saw where the Supreme Court ruled that the certificates of return that have been issued to all APC winners in that election should be withdrawn by INEC and issued to the first runner-up. I hope you are aware of that.
Yes,
We
very
have
much.
also seen cases where, today when you say an obstacle election is as a result of judicial judgment and the judgment of the judiciary on political cases where INEC had wrongfully declared someone as the winner of election. And because of that, what the judiciary now did was to determine who actually is the true winner of that elections. And that's why today in 8 states we have off-cycle governorship election. We also must not forget the landmark decision of the Supreme Court on the currency redesign. Today, you and I can spend our own currencies alongside with the new ones from 200 naira to 500 naira to 1,000 naira, because the Supreme Court said that what the governor of central bank did under Governor Emefiele was wrong, and he ruled both Emefiele and President Buhari out of order for the way they initiated the currency redesign. People should not forget that it is the same judiciary that gave judgment on that made it possible for you and I to still be able to spend our old and new cash. And there are 1,001 others. These are the few ones that come. Even in cases where, in time past, before some governors, when they lose election and their electoral victory were quashed, when the court, maybe court of appeal, said, "Oh, you are not the winner of this," or the Supreme Court said you did not win, they will now go for re-election. When they go for rerun and they win, they will now tell you that their tenure starts to count from the day of their second swearing in. The Supreme Court was the one that put the record straight that if you won election and your electoral victory was quashed by the court and there is a rerun and you win that rerun, your tenure starts to count from when you were first inaugurated, not at the second inauguration. Except if somebody else that wins, that's when the tenure of that person will start to count from the time of the rerun. So it is Supreme Court, the court judiciary as a whole has come in handy to resolve so many political, naughty political cases. They have done substantial justices, and like I said, we cannot judge Nigerian judiciary by mere looking at political electoral petition cases. That would be very unjust, and you know, that's why you can also see, let me give you this instance, Samuel, that today, I don't know whether you are from Kogi State or if you are not, you are aware
Ebonyi State.
that at the initial, when the INEC conducted the election last year, it was another person that was declared as the winner of the Kogi Central Senatorial District election. But Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan went to court, and it was the court that restored her mandate. And today, she's giving very good representation to the good people of Kogi Central. Assuming there is no judiciary, how would she have reclaimed her mandate when a sitting governor at that time said she will never amount to anything politically? We knew the rough fight between Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and former governor Yahaya Bello in Kogi State. But it was the judiciary that came in, arbitrated in that case, and today she's a senator of the Federal Republic. So the judiciary still remains the last hope of the common man. That is the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jide, for taking our time to extract all of these major talking points that we have. We thank you for joining us on this edition of the program. This is how much time would permit us to take on to this edition. Thank you so very much.
My pleasure. Keep safe.
All right. Finally, like he rightly mentioned, the judicial system is the final hope of every Nigerian. That's why the fact that we're still hoping, a whole lot of public affairs analysts and Nigerians have actually been calling so many times for the judicial system to be fully independent and also not take tippings to help boost whatever decision they tend to make for, you know, whatever party, political individuals that they get to, petitions that they get to receive. This is how much time will permit us to take, and my name is Samuel Odi. Thank you so much to the entire production team for making today's production seamless. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.